Newspaper headlines are calling Vladimir Putin Mad Vlad and Twisted Putin. He marked Russia's Veterans Day in Moscow's Red Square. But the tense showdown is doing nothing to bridge the great political divide here in the USA. Former President Trump created a firestorm by calling the Russian dictator a genius.
This is genius. Putin declares a big portion of the Ukraine. Putin declares it as independent. I said, how smart is that? Here's a guy who's very savvy.
Trump's former Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, is also taking heat for making this remark about Putin.
I consider him a elegantly sophisticated counterpart.
He's talking about a man now who has threatened nuclear extinction on NATO, on the United States.
Americans everywhere are already feeling the impact of the crisis in Ukraine in our pocketbooks.
As you can see, Donald Trump, who has always had an attraction to autocrats, just like his father. His father was an American firster, one of those who supported Nazi movements. He was arrested at a Ku Klux Klan demonstration in 1927. You can see a copy of the newspaper article describing that. And Trump, during my college years, was known for his racist policies in New York on housing and his refusal to rent apartments to Black and Puerto Ricans, who were the dominant Hispanic group in the city at that time. So Trump and his autocratic tendencies align with Putin, align with the North Korean leader Kim. This is who Trump is. And none of us should be surprised that he would support the murderous Putin in the Ukraine. And it's been interesting to see Trump try to backtrack from his support after he received so much criticism. So at the Republican Conservative CPAC convention over the weekend, he condemned the invasion after calling, as you saw earlier here, Putin a genius.
Here in the USA, former President Trump created a firestorm by calling the Russian dictator a genius.
This is genius. Putin declares a big portion of the Ukraine. Putin declares it as independent. I said, how smart is that? Here's a guy who's very savvy.
Trump.
Democrats, patriotic Americans, we must mount a campaign to educate Americans as to what Trump's gut reaction was to this cruel war in the Ukraine. I've talked about the war from both sides before it started, but we all know that Putin has been a horrible leader since he took power. It's 20 years now? Since he took over from Boris Yeltsin, 20 years? Wow, time goes fast. We know how horrible. We saw what he did in Chechnya. We've seen what he did in Crimea. We saw what he did in Georgia. And now we're seeing it in Ukraine. We cannot afford to have another Trump term. Trump is nothing but Russia and Putin's puppy dog. That's all he is. Trump wants to be like Putin. That is his desire. And so we have to run campaign ads constantly showing what Trump said. We need to get this in front of the American people constantly, so when he tries to run in 2024, he goes nowhere. This is not rocket science. This is not difficult to understand. We have to stop Trump and his Republican parties. In 2022, we have to throw Republicans out of office in the House. We have to break history. Usually in an off-year election, the minority party, the party that doesn't hold the White House, gains seats. We can't let this happen this year. They can't gain seats in the House of Representatives, and they can't gain seats in the Senate. You haven't heard anybody outside of Liz Cheney really condemning Trump for what he said. We must make them pay the price. We must constantly ask them, well, what do you think about Trump saying that Putin was a genius? Do you think he was a genius? And if they hesitate or try to avoid the question, use it in campaign ads with Trump's statement and then their responses. We have to wash their faces with this and put it in front of the American people. This is not rocket science. It's time for Democrats to play hardball with Republicans in their ad campaigns. It's time for Democrats to go for the juggler. We have Trump against the ropes. We cannot let him up. We have the Republican Party, McCarthy and the rest of them, against the ropes. We have to knock them out of the ring. And I'm going to stop here. This is a short video because this is like real clear what we need to do. All right now, have a good day. This is John Armwood on the Armwood Opinion Channel. Remember, resistance is not futile.